Okay, so hi everybody, and welcome to the Codex Radiation Therapy Treatment Data public call. The radiation therapy team is very excited to share with the community our project team's recent accomplishments over the last couple of months since our last public call in February. So the focus of today's call is to share recent project achievements with the broader radiation oncology Codex community. The radiation therapy team specifically has started exchanging synthetic patient data using the minimal common oncology data elements and Codex radiation therapy implementation guides from a radiation oncology information system to an electronic health record. I'll kick off today's call with a short background about the Codex radiation therapy use case. Next, Sharon Sebastian, Principal Health Informaticist at MITRE, will be providing updates related to recent achievements from the Codex Radiation Therapy Terminology team, specifically highlighting where we stand with our FHIR modeling work for the radiotherapy concepts and our current progress with the Codex implementation guide. Then Rishab Kapoor, Assistant Professor of Medical Physics at the Department of Radiation Oncology at Virginia Commonwealth University and Veteran Health Administration, will highlight the radiation therapy team's participation and recent successes at the Integrating the Healthcare Enterprise Radiation Oncology's workshop in May 2022. The focus of the XRTS workshop was to test and validate the radiation therapy end of treatment and on treatment summary information that has been defined in the Codex Radiation Therapy project and leveraged in the XRTS technical specification document. And I will round out the meeting with a brief call to action for the community. But before we move into the presentation, I did also want to share a link to our radiation therapy glossary page on Confluence. And this page essentially defines all relevant concepts and initiatives for the radiation therapy treatment data project, just in one complete document. Okay. So to start, as a bit of background, the Codex FHIR Accelerator is a member-driven community within the Standards Development Organization, HL7, also known as Health Level 7, that aims to accelerate the adoption and implementation of the Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, also known as FHIR, and the Minimal Common Oncology Data Elements, known as MCODE, in an effort to promote interoperable data modeling and data exchange between systems. FHIR accelerators emphasize the point that data standards are only as powerful as the community willing to adopt them. Thus, Codex is focused on gaining clinical expertise and community buy-in in order to support the data standards being developed in the community and begin piloting that work in systems. The primary Codex mission is to collect data once to reuse for multiple purposes. If Codex is able to collect data in a standardized format, this opens the door for opportunities to share this data with other interested parties within the health domain, such as patients, registries, payers, and other providers. In order to achieve this mission, Codex needs to develop a community of organizations that share standard health information between systems and advocate for the standards-based solutions being defined in the Codex community. And within this community, we have several projects underway, all with this overarching goal of creating a FHIR-based solution to solve prominent problems seen in the healthcare industry. Some of our use cases focus on trial matching, registry reporting, prior authorization, and others break into new domains such as cardiovascular and genomics. And today we'll be focusing on the recent project achievements from the Codex radiation therapy specific use case. So just to close out as the project overview for the radiation therapy team, this project specifically was helped to bridge a critical communication gap between a radiation oncology information system and an electronic health record used by a health system or another specialty radiation oncology information system, so that members of the care coordination team can understand the summary level detail of a patient's radiation therapy. Currently, this patient radiation therapy information, such as treatment details, are not readily available. The information is typically siloed in radiation oncology EHR modules, and the given data is manually entered into these summary documents most of the time. This can result in high clinical burden, and patient safety issues could arise due to the manual aspect of data entry for clinicians who need to search for radiation therapy information. So our project's proposed solution is to develop, test, and publicly release data standards that enable this interoperable multi-purpose exchange of radiation treatment summary data for care coordination and data reuse. And in turn, enabling this radiation treatment data to be accessible, interoperable, and shareable between health systems will open the opportunity for clinicians to use this readily available radiation therapy treatment summary information to make informed, impactful decisions related to a patient's health. I'd now like to turn the presentation over to Sharon Sebastian, who will provide recent Codex radiation therapy terminology updates.
Thanks, Anthony. Maybe if you want to go to the next slide. Great. So stakeholders in our use case have been working together for over 2 years, and initially we focused on developing standards to facilitate transmission of a patient's course summary, which would be sent at the end of treatment. And it defined things, all of the kind of components of a summary, like modality and technique and number of fractions. Those specifications actually made it into STU2 of EMCODE and are published in the most recent EMCODE IG. Now, more recently, we focused on developing standards to enable the exchange of prescriptions and plans at the phase and the course level. So ultimately, an in-progress report could be generated and transmitted. And we envision this report, as well as the end of treatment course summary, as being made available to the larger oncology care team, other medical professors and providers that are taking care of the patient, and even the patient themselves. And it's all with the intent of enhancing care coordination and empowering patients to better understand their progress as they move through their care journey. Because EMCODE focuses on defining the minimal data set for oncology, and that's what the M stands for in EMCODE, our use case has now delved into much more granular modeling. And so we're in the midst of publishing a distinct IG called the Codex Radiation Therapy IG. And that IG will include all of the specifications to express prescriptions, and then how radiation therapy has been managed if and when plans change. As vendors begin to implement the standards in our IG and those documentation fields and pick lists become available to support documentation, it then enables that captured data to be available for transmission. You can go to the next slide. So this is just a picture to maybe give you a better, is there a slide missing? Maybe not. Okay. Yep, that's fine. So this is a picture of our IG, one of the plan profiles in the IG, and it's on the right-hand side of the slide. The IG is defined using the US realm, and it builds on US core foundation, along with all of that course summary modeling that we contributed to EMCODE proper. So we're currently preparing our IG for STU1 balloting, which will occur in September. And we're nearly done entering all of the technical content, the things like profiles and extensions and value sets. And now we just need to circle back and fill in some of the supporting narrative descriptions. We've had several opportunities to test the specifications that we've created in 2 iHero XRTS workshops. And in December, we plan to test the full IG at another workshop, which will be a significant milestone. If you want to take a look at our IG, you can kind of copy that URL into your browser and you can see much more of the details. You want to go to the next slide? Okay, so here we kind of divided the profiles we created into 3 different segments to kind of mirror the radiation oncology clinical workflow. And these profiles would be used by radiation oncologists and physicists to support their workflow while caring for a patient. The profiles enable them to prescribe radiation therapy at a single plan, phase, and course level, and then develop plans at the treatment phase and course level, and finally describe the treatment that was delivered at each of those levels. In the middle column of the slide, it's those plan profiles that enable transmission of an in-progress treatment summary. And that's where a clinician can discern between the treatment that was planned and what was actually delivered. And at the top of the column in the far right, it's the course summary profile that enables transmission of the end of treatment summary. And if treatment goes intended, you know exactly what you prescribed and planned and delivered, all of that data, you would see alignment across all of the profiles. But of course, that doesn't always happen in real life. And then there's one profile down in the bottom corner, and that's the radiotherapy volume profile that's actually used and referred to in the entire clinical workflow. That radiotherapy volume actually describes the volume of the body used in both planning and delivery of treatment. You can go to the next slide. Okay, this is just another kind of picture of what the different components of both the EMCODE IG and our radiation therapy IG are comprised of. At the very top, that gold box is what would be included in a course summary, and those specs are in the EMCODE STU2 IG. And then the second and third levels describe both the treated phase and the treated plan level definitions. Those are in the Codex Radiation Therapy IG. And that bottom table is just a different way of kind of representing the data as you move through, you know, the flow of caring for patient over numerous different care periods. If you want to go to the next slide, Anthony. So this slide displays all of the EMCODE STU2 profiles and extensions and value sets that we either created from scratch or we updated from existing STU1 specs over the past year and a half. And all of those final specifications are published in the STU2 IG. Of note, we also requested SNOMED codes for any clinical concept that wasn't already represented by a standard terminology. And we were very successful in attaining all the codes we needed to ensure interoperability. You can see some of those codes listed down in the bottom right-hand side, but then we actually went a step further. And we took each SNOMED code that wasn't already available in the global patient set, which is a set of codes that are publicly available and for use without a license. And we applied for our codes through iHeroes participation and collaboration with the global patient set to have them moved over so that they were publicly available. And that global patient set was created to foster interoperability for countries that may be less digitally mature, or maybe it's just a starting point for them in their journey to migrate towards use of SNOMED CT. But by actually going to that extra mile, we hope we reduced barriers that might have impeded implementation and adoption of the specifications. You can go to the next slide. These are the extensions that we've been working on over the past 6 months or so, and several of them were created to support prescriptions and plans using the service request FHIR resource. The modeling of these profiles is very similar to how we represented delivered doses and fractions. Once we got those profiles done, we actually went back and added several new extensions to all of the profiles that describe prescriptions and plans and delivered treatment. And so that includes 2 extensions that describe the treatment device. One of the data elements or extensions is actually called treatment device. And that allows someone to describe whether they used radioactive seeds and what type of seeds for brachytherapy, or the model and manufacturer of an external beam system. And then there's also a distinct extension for applicators, which are used for brachytherapy. And that includes in that value set things like tandems and ovoids and rings and balloons. And then just to go a little deeper beyond just including modeling for modality and technique, we included a new extension called the radiotherapy energy or isotope. And so again, all of these extensions are now available in all 9 of the profiles. And there's an added extension that references radiotherapy plans and treatment records. And here again, going to the URL and getting more details is definitely recommended because there's a lot of information within all of those specs. You want to go to the next slide, Anthony? So if an existing value set doesn't meet the needs of our modeling, then we kind of follow a development process. There you go. Yeah, a development process when we create a value set. And so we always start first with listing all of the concepts we believe should be in the value set. And we do that from reviewing published literature and also from all of the subject matter experts that we have on our team. And then from there, we determine the most appropriate terminology to represent each concept. So, you know, if we were dealing with medications, we'd use RX norm, or for conditions, it would be ICD-10 and SNOMED. But in this use case, it just so happens that most of the time we've needed SNOMED codes because we're representing things like devices and substances and body parts. So then next, once we've identified the targeted terminology, we look to see if there are codes available in that terminology. And if there aren't any, then we request new codes and list a temporary code in RIG until the new SNOMED codes are assigned and published. And then finally, we advocate for all of those SNOMED codes to be incorporated in the global patient set that I mentioned a little while ago. On the bottom left-hand side, you can see some of the new value sets that are under development. We have a very small value set that describes, that describes the unit of measure for energy used in radiation therapy. So things like megavolts and kilovolts, very small value set, that's kind of what's in there. On the right-hand side, you can see all of the components in our radiotherapy isotope value set. And here we got very lucky, and every one of them was already had a SNOMED code available that represented the concept. So we were good to go there. We're right now in the midst of applying for new SNOMED codes for the brachytherapy applicator types, and just had an early review of the submission, and it's looking favorable. So we're very encouraged with our progress towards getting those standard terminology codes, and SNOMED folks have been just wonderful to work with. You want to go to the next slide? So this slide and then the next two slides talk about our XRTS workshops from a profile perspective, and you can see what we have worked on so far and what we'll work on in the future. Rishab is going to be sharing additional details about the workshop outcomes and findings, but this past December, we held a workshop where we focused on creating and sending an end of treatment summary. And that encompassed the two profiles inside the orange kind of rectangle in the right-hand side of the slide. And we had a successful outcome. So then if you go to the next slide, just 2 months ago, we participated in another workshop where we tested and demonstrated our ability to send and receive an in-progress summary, where the receiver, again, could discern the difference between the planned treatment and what had been delivered to date. And you can see how the number of profiles inside the orange box increased during the second round of testing. And then the next slide. It kind of shows what we plan to do in December, where we're going to test generating and transmitting and receiving information across the entire IG, from the radiation therapy prescriptions through planning and then what was delivered. And it's been very exciting to see the breadth of these specifications being implemented. And we're looking forward to seeing how the next round of testing goes. Then I have one more slide. So next up is our focus on just getting that last bit of content into the IG, so we're ready for the September ballot. We're also developing a plan for how to address ballot comments that are submitted. And then, as I just mentioned, in December, we have that next iHero XRTS workshop. So implementers are busy from a technical standpoint, getting their systems ready for that event. And then because the terminology team always needs to stay one step ahead of the technical team and the implementers, we need to decide what data elements we're going to model next. And we're considering potential data elements based on several other intersecting efforts. So, you know, we have the iHero XRTS effort, and there's one or two data elements that they have in their specs that we don't yet have in ours. There's ORO's work, and ORO stands for the Operational Ontology for Radiation Oncology. They created a very extensive list of data elements that might be included in a care summary for a cancer patient. There are data elements that are listed in the Commission on Cancer's radiation therapy summary that aren't in our current specs that we're considering. And then finally, there's two other use cases within the Codex effort that require radiation therapy related data, and it has yet to be modeled, but those are data elements within the prior auth and the registry reporting use cases, so they're under consideration. So we ended up compiling a list of all the potential data elements, and team members are in the process of kind of ranking and prioritizing them. And ultimately, we plan to select about a dozen new data elements to model and define in phase 4 of our work. So I'll turn the presentation over to Rashab now so he can provide the technical updates.
Hi, thank you, Sharon, for that wonderful presentation. So what I'm going to be presenting on is the May 2022 XRTS workshop. We had a fairly successful test event and all virtual. We were not in physical condition to meet, but and it was fairly successful. Next slide, Anthony. So before we do that, just a brief introduction or overview of what IHE-RO is. Integrating the healthcare enterprise really started in the 90s, I think 1996 to 98, where a few academic clinicians, vendors, engineers got together and really said, well, you know, there is all these data standards, exciting data standards, which are available, such as DICOM and HL7, but we still don't have interoperability for clinical findings, clinical use cases in the field, in the clinic itself. And so that's how the IHE initiative started. And for radiation oncology, the initiative started in 2004, sponsored by, both supported by actually ASTRO and AAPM to form a task force to address interoperability issues. So some of you who do know about radiation oncology, we've been pretty much computerized with the information technology for all our lives almost, right? Back in the 80s, we were doing computer planning, and we still are. And there is a lot of information technology which we have within radiation oncology domain, almost the first few domains in the medicine domain. And so we had a lot of this data, electronic data, and how to have that available to other vendor systems, have that available for a clinical workflow to be established was the biggest challenge we had. And we had participants from the vendors, the physicists, the clinicians, all dedicated to making this or solve this challenge of making interoperability a goal between vendor products, equipment, software, all of those. And iHero provided that framework. iHero was and is, and in my 12 years of iHero, I've interacted with a lot of clinical use cases, looked at, made a dent in, having the treatment plans all talk to different vendor systems, having image registrations being available in different systems, whether that's a spatial registration object, whether that is a treatment delivery workflow, where you would need to have a particular vendor system communicate a treatment plan with, and having a patient schedule for those. All of those are resolved by this iHero, where we have participation from multiple vendors to resolve an interoperability issue. And it provides a mechanism for inter-manufacturer formal testing before a vendor product is on the floor for clinical delivery. provides a good framework for the vendors to kind of build and test their products before that they release their products. Next slide. So around 3 years ago, we had this survey which was done to the field and trying to find out what are the top use cases which have not been resolved as of yet, and how iHero can help. And we were the first or topmost use case we were presented with was this lack of interoperability between the radiation oncology domain and the electronic health record. Mostly by clinicians who would need to have or live in two worlds, live in the radiation oncology domain and also live in the electronic health record domain or general medicine domain, and would have to enter information twice. And be not having any interoperability was the biggest use case. So we started off working on a HL7 V2 based profile, and we actually came pretty far along. And then a couple of years ago, we found out about what this ENCODE effort with the specifications they were building, and we thought that was a great use case. We should join hands and build a profile which is FHIR enabled, which is the new age, and have this, and we take advantage of what ENCODE is doing with the Codex use case and draft that into an XRTS specification, the technical specifications. So it worked well for iHero. For the data modeling and the FHIR structures were done in the ENCODE group with the Codex IG, RTTD IG, and the architecture and the transactions and how this whole thing would work out, and the testing is being performed at the iHero XRTS work group. There was an interesting article which got recently published in the newsletter just last month. So it'll be interesting for you all to read this. Just provide a basic overview of what we have achieved so far with this iHero XRTS use case and the ENCODE partnership. Next slide. So in a nutshell, the workshop goals were to have interoperability between the healthcare EHR and the oncology information system, or you can call it a RAD-ONC EHR, having data transfer between the two. So our clinicians mostly live in both systems. They would come in and enter their prescriptions in the electronic health record system. The dosimetrist and the physicist plans the case and have them ready for treatment delivery. And once the delivery is done, that is all of that information is captured within the OIS. And then having that information be available or pertinent or summary of that information available to the electronic health record was the focus of this XRTS workshop. So we held 2 workshops back in December and now a few months ago in May. And the focus has been similar, I would say, but a little bit more extension in the May workshop, where we also included not only the treatment summary or end of treatment summary information, but also included the in progress information. So intermediate steps as the patient's delivery is complete, in progress information is shared with this resource repository, which is essentially a FHIR server in the middle. And then the healthcare EHR can retrieve that information and be available, make that available and to be displayed in their system, predominantly to take care of this use case, to have that information available for on-treatment visit summary or an in-treatment summary as a chart record in the electronic health record. Next slide, please. Here is the data models and the FHIR data models. The colored red colored elements which are defined in the ENCODE specifications. The one in gray are defined in the Codex RTTD IG. So the main focus for the December workshop was which was phase 1 for us, was to have the end of treatment summary information be available. So it included, resources, body structure resources, procedure resources, which model based on the course summary, the treatment phase, and the treatment volume be available within the EHR. And next, we wanted to focus on the in-progress summary, which would have information about what was actually planned to be made available within the EHR. So, to enable that, we had to provide information about the planned course and the planned phase, which are on file language. There are the service request-based resources, and you see the elements which are shared, similar to what was actually delivered on the treatment phase in the course summary information, but this is actually what was planned to be delivered, so that we can compare what was planned versus what was delivered on the EHR level. Next slide. So the focus of the workshop was obviously the end of treatment summary covered by the MCODE STU2, having a patient resources, procedure resources, and the body structure resources be available. Also the phase summary. So we could go down to the individual phases of treatment, not only look at the overall course details, but also the phase details, and look at individual plans per se, and see how those are being handled in a summary level. And then also look at the planned course and the planned phase. So this is again the planned portion of the interoperability profile, where we wanted to see how this is being modeled with the vendor products. And obviously we want to prepare for a formal testing. So this is mostly informal testing we had, and knowing about issues, and we've learned a lot actually, the judges on the call, and also infrastructure wise, what do we need for testing this kind of work in a formal setting. There was a lot of learnings we had from these two workshops, and how we can better our testing and modeling and tooling to have this done better in the next workshop. Next slide, please. So again, the piece was, we had three actors mostly for this workshop. The treatment summary provider, this was the radiation oncology domain, information systems, Varian, RayCare, and Elekta were the treatment summary providers, or held the role of a treatment summary provider. The treatment observers were the recipients of the data. So we had the Epic system as the major recipient. We had RayCare also retrieve data and be able to display data from another provider. And then we also had a tool developed by the MITRE people who then were able to retrieve data, and it was a very neat tool. It was a web-based tool where you can retrieve data from a generic FHIR server and display data in a format which was appealing to be used for testing purposes. And then in the middle, we had this resource repository where data will be pushed into this FHIR server, and then we retrieved by the treatment observer. So resource repository was implemented by Epic, and then also we had open source Happy server. This is a very basic FHIR repository which would be utilized for testing between the treatment summary provider and an observer. We also had a tool which iHero built called the XRTS validator. This was used to be an intermediary between the treatment summary provider and the repository and the observer to test out all the pieces of the transactions, whether those being performed in order or not, whether semantic interoperability is being performed or not, sequences of events have been adhered to or not. So basically a test tool which was playing the role as an intermediary between the different actors to really passively look into how the data has been transferred from one system to the other. And here is all the tests we did, patients present, body structures present, push, planned course, planned phase, course summary information, and then from the observers setting, retrieve query for a patient, retrieve the body structure, retrieve the planned course, planned phase, and the course summary information and the phase summary information. Next slide, please. So test scenarios, we had 4 test cases we used for testing, 3 prostate cases and 1 breast case, really to look into different combinations of how volumes and treatment phases are being handled by vendor systems. So a single phase treated in a single treatment, single treatment volume treated in a single treatment phase was the first use case, a very simplistic use case. Then a single treatment volume treated in 2 separate treatment phases. So initial and maybe a boost, or maybe not a boost, but really a two-phase treatment for a single treatment volume, multiple volumes treated in a single treatment phase, simultaneous, treatment of multiple volumes. And then multiple volumes treated with multiple treatment phases, the most complex case where we wanted to see how vendor system were able to do this. And really, our use case was even more involved than this because we wanted to see how treatment interruptions are being handled by vendor systems, how in-progress information is be able to be modeled. And we tested it for all specific configurations. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you a demonstration on a single test case number 2, where Varian and Research were holding the role of a provider of information. Epic and FireServer were holding the role of a repository. And then Epic and Research and the RTTD tool were the displays or a treatment observer of the information. Next slide. So Varian information system was the treatment observer or treatment provider. And you see here two volumes, P primary and the P change one. Excuse us for the names, these were defined by engineers. So they were two different treatment volumes treated at 1.8 gray and 2 gray per fraction. And all fractions were delivered. 4 fractions were planned and 4 were delivered for the P change 1, and the P primary 3 out of 3 were delivered. But there was a treatment interruption for both these cases. So there were 4 sessions for the P primary, and then 5 sessions for the P change 1. And they were, for the number 2, there was a treatment interruption where a partial delivery was done, and the next day the complete delivery was the delivery was complete the next day. So if you go down to the next slide, again, the ditto same thing happened. We modeled the same thing with the Research system. Again, the same aspect, two treatment volumes were delivered, and then a partial delivery was there for 1 session, for 1 fraction and 1 session. And so that was delivered or completed in the next fraction or next session of the session of the delivery. And go to the next slide. And how this data was shown in the Fire-based way in the FireServer. Next slide. And this is the XRTS validator tool. So again, this is an intermediary between the 2 systems. So this will look into the data and pass or fail information based on how those are consumed or how those are modeled. And so for this one, both sets of tests were passed by the XRTS validator tool. Next slide, please. And then on the display side, on the treatment observer side, and this is the display from Epic, you'll see 9 sessions were used to deliver this treatment. 7 fractions were delivered. The total dose was delivered 13.4 gray or 1340 centigrade. And then you'll see individual phases of treatment as well, where you'll see multiple number of fractions delivered were more or were less than this number of sessions. This clearly shows that the interruptions of treatment was indicated in the messages and were displayed within the Epic system. Next slide, please. Again, on the MITRE tool as well, again, the same kind of display, number of sessions were 9, number of fractions delivered were 7, and more details on the same kind of display. Next slide, please. And again, on the Research side, they were also able to retrieve this data and show, again, the same kind of information on their system as well. So mind you, this is not from Research. This plan was from Varian, but consumed by Research and displayed on their system. So in the future, what we're doing is in December, like Sharon has mentioned, we will look into interoperability of prescriptions and have that available. And we are just following the modeling terminology group and their modeling. And hopefully we'll make a dent in the prescription use case and then move forward with this testing further on. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Anthony now.
Yep, thanks, Rishab. And I just wanted to close out, share a few of the team's next steps and goals for upcoming phase 3 and 4 of work. So for phase 3 next steps, as the project team moves forward, the team is planning to incorporate new radiation therapy specific concepts within our current RTTD FIRE model. This way, the team intends to be the HL7, essentially the source of truth for all information related to radiation therapy. As Sharon mentioned, we're working toward publishing our current version of the Codex Radiation Therapy Implementation Guide during the September 2022 ballot cycle. Once this is published, the first version of our implementation guide will be publicly available for any interested organization to implement. Additionally, the team has plans to continue testing new radiotherapy specific concepts at future iHero XRTS workshops, which Rishab had mentioned in his presentation. In particular, the scheduled December 2022 workshop will focus on testing new plan and prescription radiotherapy profiles that were mentioned, as well as targeting new testing from vendors such as, for instance, Elekta and Cerner and others that might be interested in that December workshop. And finally, the RTTD team is focusing efforts on preparing to pilot the radiotherapy profiles between two systems once made available in production-ready systems. Ideally, a radiation oncology system would generate treatment information that is retrieved by a health site and displayed within the EHR interface. The goal is for Varian, RaySearch, and Epic, and other vendors that will begin participating to implement the radiotherapy profiles for both end of treatment and in progress summaries. And the radiation oncology information systems will then produce the radiation information. So Epic, Cerner, other custom health analytics applications and EHRs can all retrieve and display the information on their interface. In support of our upcoming pilot activities and exciting news for the entire radiation therapy and radiation oncology community, RaySearch just released a new version of its information system called RayCare 6A. The updates in 6A include the radiotherapy course summary and radiotherapy volume profiles that are in M-Code version 2. These profiles are available to support the information found in patients' end of treatment summaries. And this is very important news because as we prepare for pilot testing, health sites that are RayCare customers can consider updating to RayCare version 6A, adopt the radiotherapy course summary and radiotherapy volume profiles in M-Code, and test the patient end of treatment information in clinical practice. Overall, our team's next steps for the pilot is to test a real-time end-to-end workflow between radiation oncology information systems and EHRs using either synthetic or real patient data. This will help the project team determine if the current model of the radiotherapy profiles are sufficient in clinical practice. Other sites that are using other vendor systems can also reach out to learn more about steps that will need to be taken in order to participate in pilot testing. And finally, the project team is asking organizations to continue supporting future pilot work, to connect with the Codex Radiation Therapy team to help pilot design, such as questions like, what would a pilot workflow between a health site's ROIS and EHR look like? What type of data would be shared? What question within a clinic is asked? Would a clinic and their members like to have answered? And how could the RTTD solution provide some level of insight into that? As well as just working through legal agreements between an RIS vendor and an interested health site. Starting those conversations between both interested parties would be better to do sooner rather than later. So it would be great to have those conversations started while we're working through the project itself. So the Codex Radiation Therapy team's main takeaway and call to action from this presentation is to determine who in the RO community is interested in joining the Codex team and participating in this modeling, this testing, and the ultimate piloting of the radiotherapy FIRE profiles that have been created so far by the team. Please reach out to me if you're interested in learning more about any of the aspects of our project work highlighted in these orange boxes. And I'd be happy to connect you with other leaders, or if you wanted to just reach out individually at their emails provided. We are aligning efforts in each of these areas to help contribute to the broader Codex Radiation Therapy work. And as always, new collaborators and collaboration from interested parties in any of these areas will help support our overall project mission. Specifically, the data standardization work within the Big Data Subcommittee and the Operational Ontology for Radiation Oncology, the XRTS work group's technical specification document that aligns with the Codex terminology work within IHERO, or the adoption and implementation of the radiotherapy fire profiles themselves, and the fire modeling and RT implementation guide that's being built of these radiotherapy concepts, which is underway in the Codex Radiation Therapy project team.